You're listening to Welcome to Eloma, a podcast for highly ambitious dreamers who get shit done. I'm your host, Kylie Peters. This is a space where we talk about the value of building community through membership organizations. I am super excited to dive into this topic today because it's a totally different beast than running a service or product-based business. And at Rain 9, we're actually in the process of launching a membership program for women small business owners this fall of 2022, because I believe so deeply in the power of community. So if any listeners are out there and you're curious, definitely check out Rain9, RAYNEIX.com and sign up for our email newsletter so you don't miss out on anything there. But today's guest is going to dive headfirst into membership organizations. Today, we have Amy Vaughan with us. She's the owner and chief empowerment officer of the Together Digital Community, which is a community for women in digital marketing. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Eloma.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Well, we are lucky to have you. You have a really interesting journey. I know that you started as a member of Together Digital, and then you became the owner. So tell me a little bit about what that process was like for you and why you decided to make that move into ownership.
Absolutely. It was exciting and quite unexpected.
As are all the best things in life, right?
Right. This is true. This is true. And so I had been a member of Together Digital for, I would say, about 2.5, 3 years. During the course of that, I had helped build up our Cincinnati chapter to close to 250 members. We were hosting monthly meetings. What I had found about the experience being a part of Together Digital and leading a chapter was that even though I'd worked at large conglomerate agencies, had leadership trainings and onboarding, there was nothing more educational and challenging than managing a group of volunteer women for a board and just working through those dynamics, and also just getting the opportunity and visibility within my local community to be walking around town and people know me, not because of my agency, but because being a Together Digital member. And I remember that feeling kind of crazy and awesome at the same time. So backtracking a little, I kind of found my spark for giving and creating safe space for women to speak about and seek out the changes they want to see in themselves in the world. Way back when I was like 8 years old, I was creating clubs for people who didn't feel like they were included or needed to feel included. But fast forward many years later, and at the time when, Together Digital found me, I was, working as a creative director, making I had the title, I had the salary that I had always hoped for. I was a working mom of soon to be 2 kids. I had one and another on the way. And, I just really felt alone. I would be on sets and I would be the only woman, and much less the only woman that was a mom and maybe dealing with, mom type things like, hey guys, I need a place to pump. Where can I go that I won't be interrupted?
Yeah, for sure.
And, and just dealing with the ins and the outs of that. I was trying to create a women in leadership group and successfully did create a women in leadership group at my agency. But I realized like my world was contained to the 4 walls of my cubicle. I needed to go beyond that. And so Together Digital had given me sort of all of these opportunities. So it kind of always felt easy. People would always ask, Amy, how do you find time? You work like crazy. You have soon to be 2 kids.
Yeah.
I was taking care of my mom at the time as well, who was dealing with some health issues. And I said, you know what? If it matters, you will make time for it. And this is my me time. Whenever I meet with these women, the board members, the members, I walk away feeling more energized, more connected, more seen and heard than I do some days when I'm at home or at work. And so it was kind of selfish. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make time. It's never easy, but 7:30 a.m. board meetings, just bring the coffee and I will be there and we'll get stuff done.
But I think that's such a great call out. And I want to interrupt just for a moment because I think so often, especially in society, we hear like, oh, you have to fill up your cup. You have to fill up your cup. Mm-hmm. And so often, especially as women, we hear like, go get a massage or take care of yourself or meditate. But that can look so different for so many people. And as you're saying, like, I think the big thing that what I'm hearing you say is like, it gave me this energy.
Mhm.
And so to anyone listening right now, I'd say focus on what gives you that positive
Yes.
energy and fills up your cup. It doesn't matter what it's called or how it's labeled,
Yeah.
but like it's the energy piece.
100%, 100%. And you're not going to find your energy in the same spaces as everyone else. And if you force yourself to or pretend to, it's just going to be more draining. That was a great call out. I completely agree. And I think, again, like I just kind of ran through from ages 8 to like 35, but there was this constant theme for me as I was developing as a human that I want to help others. I want to support others. I want to create safe space for others. And so, and it's crazy to think, and I still don't know why exactly. I never really asked her why she picked me, but the founder of Together Digital in 2019 at our national conference pulls me aside and just in the moment blurts out that she is going to go run for Congress basically because a member has encouraged her to. So she had
Oh my
been
gosh,
she was
crazy.
running digital campaigns and marketing for congressional candidates and seeing what Elena had been doing and was like, you are perfect for this. And you're in a really important district. You need to do this. And she got her family
Cool.
support from her community. And so this was going to be an all in thing for her,
Yeah, for sure.
which is very much an Elena thing. It's like all in. And so she had rapidly grown and built Together Digital. It became my constant as a community for so long that I was thrilled for her. And I loved that a member gave that gift to her because
Mhm.
she'd given the gift of opportunity, ideas for others for so long. To have that bestowed upon her was wonderful, but then also frightening because I'm like, what the hell? What about all this? I need
Yeah.
this. Like
Yeah.
our annual conference was my momcation every year. And she's like, well, that's where you come in. And I was just stood there like a deer in headlights, stunned. But not stunned because, when what happens when you open yourself up to women who understand your skill sets, your knowledge, your passions, and see it for the potential, because women are so often not hired or given opportunities on potential like men are, that when you have women as champions and when we're championing one another, that's how Elena ended up running for Congress. She never would have done that in her life. She never would have had
Yeah.
the notion if it wouldn't have been for another woman. I'd always deep down wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always been trying to champion and create community and culture. Every job I ever had, that's all I was ever doing. I mean, I was doing my full-time job and then on top of that for
Yeah.
free, trying to make some kind of a
Always.
difference.
Yep. Hmm.
And so, and she also knew I wanted to get into operations, which as a creative, some people are a little afraid of. And so I even had a boss that was like, creatives can't run companies. And so a few months later, I got to go back and tell her, hey, I'm leaving and I'm going to go run a company, because even the women within our membership base in our group, women that I coach, we're so multifaceted. We love the term multi-potentialite, that notion that you can do and be just about anything because we're good at more than just any one thing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people see that as a detriment. Whereas, me getting outside of, agency world, let me kind of explore all lanes instead of just staying in my lane. So yeah, I kind of came to entrepreneurship quite suddenly, quite unexpectedly, and about 3 months before the pandemic hit.
Okay. Okay. And so
Went from member
what
to CEO.
yeah, so talk to me just briefly about like what that transition was like for
Yeah.
anybody else who's listening about, kind of stepping into the shoes of something that has already been established,
Yeah.
but now you're leading it and you didn't necessarily build the infrastructure, but
Mhm.
now it's yours. So what is that experience like?
It was interesting. It was very unique, and intimidating and scary and all the things you imagine that it could be because, there's a lot of times with startups, there's this whole what they call founder syndrome, where it's like there's a bit of a cult of personality around a person. And anybody who's
Sure.
ever met or heard Elena speak, she is magnetic and she energizes and she just gets her points across so well. And like I said, she did a phenomenal job building it. I knew though that was never my way of doing things and the way that I was going to do things. And so we worked actually for the first year or so, she was very busy with running with Congress. I
Sure.
was very busy trying to get my head around things. I think it is just a lot of self-awareness and knowing where you can fill in the gaps for maybe what is or was lacking. So one of the things that was lacking was just overall management of the organization from a financial standpoint. Operationally, there was not much of a foundation. We had grown so much so fast, and it was such a quick, beautiful flash of a thing that it wasn't going to be sustainable. And so
For
there was a
sure.
lot of things I did in the first few months, even before COVID happened, to reduce our tech stack, to really look at operations and create some efficiencies. And honestly, I'm really proud to say that even while I didn't go out and get to wow the crowds and the audiences, what I did do was create a firm foundation that allowed us to actually make it through the pandemic, which a lot of organizations and membership-based companies like ours did not.
Yeah.
So it's a bumpy road. But the good news is that when you're kind of taking over for something or someone or moving into place, you have the benefit of that 3,000-foot view, 30,000-foot view, where you can kind of look and say, what's working, what's not working, because things are already in motion. Whereas like if you're starting from nothing and trying to get somewhere, that sounds
It's
more
a
exhausting
steep
to me.
hill.
I'm more of a fixer. I think I honestly, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, could I have ever started something like this from the ground up? So much energy, so
Yeah,
much risk.
it's true.
Whereas looking at something and knowing the playing field, I was able to strategize and put some things into motion that I felt would help the business long term. So,
Well, and you bring up another good point of surviving the pandemic, right?
mhm,
And so you as a member turned owner, right
mhm,
before we all went through this life-changing experience, talk to me a little bit about what are the key factors for that retain members. I
mhm.
mean, anyone out there who's thinking of starting a membership or runs a
Yeah,
membership, this is a KPI that we should all be
yeah,
thinking about, right? So tell us some of your
yes.
tips and tricks.
Yeah, it is not for the faint of heart, but I will tell you my biggest mission from the get go, as soon as COVID hit, was retention. It was
Yep.
retention, but then also retention of the right members.
Yes.
I learned a really good lesson. I had like a bit of a gap year after college where I ended up in England while my husband went and did some postdoctoral research for Oxford University because he's a big dummy.
Fun.
And yeah, and I was doing a bunch of freelance work and I still needed more money. And so I started working at a coffee shop. And I remember the owner, who's now a dear friend of mine, it's been, gosh, a decade and a half, and we still talk all the time. Um, there was a customer that came in and was being really rude and really belligerent and unnecessarily cruel to the staff. And she basically just walked up to them and said, "You can leave. You can leave." I think understanding and knowing when you're running a membership organization, you have to understand and know your values and your culture, and there needs to be a code of conduct. For Together Digital, it is
Mm,
all about making sure that we are maintaining confidentiality so that women feel like they can ask the hard questions in a safe space. We are also about making sure that we're creating a space for all women, regardless of their age, race, previous gender identity, to infringe upon their ability to speak out confidently. And that's not an easy thing to do.
yeah.
And so part of it was dealing with the fact that we maybe had some people that were in the community that were rather loud about their like opinions and ideas and that weren't really there maybe for the right reasons.
Hmm.
So while retention is important, just remember you don't have to keep everyone. When Sam, my friend at the coffee shop, stood up and told that customer, "You can go," I mean, they were ruining the experience for everybody else in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Everyone behind the bar got stiff and like a little tense all of a sudden. You could see everybody stopped enjoying their coffee and they're like, "What is going on over here?" And just to see her say that and stand up to them in that moment was like, oh, wow. Like that's kind of the beauty of owning your own business, is
Well,
that you don't have to be for everybody.
exactly. And I think that too is, that's part of leading,
Mhm,
right? I think it's obviously so relevant here as we're talking about memberships, but
mhm.
in leadership and in life in general, like for
Yeah.
anyone who's leading any business,
Mhm.
it's never fun to like fire a client or
Right.
fire a team member, but
Mhm,
when their toxicity
mhm.
impacts everyone else,
Yeah.
people know. They may not
Mhm.
be saying it to your face that this person
Yeah.
sucks, but the
Mhm.
moment that they're gone, everyone's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, thank God, I
Yeah.
was waiting for that." So I
Right.
think that's also just maybe a note to any leaders and
Mhm.
anyone out there building a membership-based organization. That's
Right.
part of your responsibility,
Right.
right?
And it's a part of the membership experience.
Sure.
Because I mean, it's a very public platform. We leverage Slack, we are on virtual events, we do in-person events. And when those moments happen and all of a sudden we get back into that space where women are competing versus collaborating,
Yeah.
or judging or trying to one up each other or gatekeeping, all of those things are against sort of our kind of a moral compass as an organization. And so a lot of that was me not just saying members, because I remember when we started, it was like, okay, we've got this many number of members. We need to grow to this many number of members.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always just looking at the retention and engagement. Those two are the key components to me, because I'll tell you, like, word of mouth is still, no matter how much digital marketing we do, no matter what kind of spend we put behind things, word of mouth and people sharing that experience of this is what it's like to be part of a genuine, authentic community of women that support one another unconditionally. No matter their age, no matter their question, no matter the need, you'd be hard pressed to find that. And so, it doesn't make it to where, as a business owner, I am rolling in the dough and raking in profits. I have truly accepted and acknowledged that we are a social enterprise, and that I am trying to build the kinds of culture and space for women that I wish I could have had in the places that I'd worked in the past. Yep. And so really anything that I can do to fiercely protect that, I will do.
Yeah.
So membership-based organization, know your values, stick to them, be ready to stand up for them. Otherwise, you're failing your members and you're going to start to see retention and turnover. People turn fast.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
They aren't happy.
Well, and I want to dig into that a little bit, because you already kind of mentioned this. You said retention rate or churn rate. I would, and engagement rate. Because my next question was, what are the main KPIs that people should be monitoring for a membership base? So would you say those are the two main ones, or are there others that we should?
Those are two. We do like a net gain loss of members. We do a member satisfaction survey once, sometimes twice a year. Okay. And from that, we really want to understand how they're leveraging it, where they're leveraging it. I also, just from a qualitative standpoint, I do one-on-one onboarding for any new members and returning members, or even members that have been around for a while and just need to learn the ropes, because we have so much to offer. I want to make sure it's tailored to their needs and the time that they have, because I know it's not infinite, the time they have. So to really make it effective, right? I know, if only everybody was as lucky as me to spend all this time in community learning and absorbing all the goodness. So yes, I think it's a challenge in making sure that engagement to us is, the communications on Slack, the attendance to virtual and in-person events, the responses to our surveys that we do as frequently as we can.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's infinite number of benefits. And I think you've touched on a lot of things in terms of like culture and community and creating safe spaces. What would you say are some of the challenges of running a membership-based business, maybe even comparison to any other business or standalone? Your call.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think this is it's more closely tied to the pandemic than maybe it was in previous years. But, in-person events were a big draw for us. I mean, they were a big expense, but they were a big draw for new memberships and ticket sales and sponsorships. So it's not a massively, if you have a lot of churn and a lot of lapsing members and a lot of dissatisfied customers that don't recommend you, it's, even when things are good, you're not, like I said, you're not going to be swimming in the money. You're not going to be Scrooge McDuck and dive it into your bank. So the challenges are definitely finances. We are a social enterprise, but we're not building IP. So venture capitalists aren't necessarily out there looking to back us. Large companies and organizations right now, at least, are funneling as much money as they can into recruitment or are holding back on budgets because they're laying people off. So sponsorships have been a challenge. Memberships haven't. So again, like I scale the business, I've right-sized the business to maintain all of our operations, increase our membership experience and programming, probably times 10 is what it was before, in just doing that on our member dues alone. No easy feat. But because we had this magnificent core of women at the start that were engaged, that when, events went away for a while, there were those who were still some left. Honestly, I mean, if they were in it for the events, that's fine. Like you can't take it personally. And we've had a lot of returning members, but the ones that have stayed and that have engaged in the community and have seen and gotten value out of their experience, whether that's through our peer groups or virtual events and trainings, workshops, what have you, or just on Slack. It all just depends. Each member's a little different. Seeing results from those kind of testimonial type things, those are really helpful. And then I kind of blanked and forgot the initial question that you asked me. Oh, the challenges. The challenges. Absolutely money. I mean, we're a minority owned business, and it's like people don't throw money at these kinds of things right now. So you have to be smart. You have to go in smart. You have to go ready to, invest your heart, mind, maybe a little bit of your own money to make sure that it sees, where it needs to see. And we've got lots of plans for next year. We're already ramping back into some bigger in-person summits and things like that again. And I'm even building and structuring those to be more intentional, and more intentional to make meaningful connections, more transformational, less transactional, smaller groups, bigger conversations. And again, not with the goal of like lining our pockets, but furthering our mission and helping more women feel seen and heard in a space instead of feeling like one in a massive crowd. So
you teed this up so nicely. Tell us a little bit about some of the exciting things you have coming up in the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the majority of our membership is in the Midwest. That's where we started. That's a lot of our key cities. So Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Nashville, and then we have Denver. Denver has just been this beautiful microcosm of just like support, ongoing support, and valuing and helping one another. Like their Slack channel is probably one of my favorites, and I'll always tell it to the other cities because if somebody even needs a dog sitter, they'll be like, "Can somebody help? I need a dog sitter."
That's the best, right? And thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's so important to call out too, is like, this community that you've built is specifically targeting women in the digital and tech space, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't just have to be about digital and tech. It's also like my kids and my pets and my life. And like, we talk about community and culture, and like, we're talking about whole humans.
Yes, 100%. I am right there with you. In fact, we have a channel for working moms, and we do a working mom peer group. We've obviously all been leaning on each other during back to school time as we're all adjusting to new schedules and everything, and kids going back. We have a Pets of TD channel that I love to go to whenever I'm having a meh day and I want to see a bunch of cute furry things. I mean, that is the other thing, I think it's kind of cheesy, and companies are like, we want you to show up whole. And then people are like, well, if I show up whole, I might not have a job tomorrow. Right. The beauty of our community, beauty of being a member of a space where you're with like-minded people is that you can show up whole, and we're not going to be,
and just be accepted for the good and the bad.
Oh yeah. Because it's all learning. I think that's the other thing too, is just a safe space to stretch your legs and learn, because that's what the group gave me, right? When I was running the Cincinnati chapter, when I was getting the wheels on and trying to figure out what the hell to do as like a newly minted CEO, when any of other of thousands of women could have been asked, being like, what, why me? And then a lot of other women going, why her, kind of a thing. It was like,
yeah, sure.
Having a community to support you through those changes and through that learning. I mean, it helps you receive that grace, and then you return that grace to others. And it makes it easier to give that grace to yourself as you're like learning and growing. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. The summits, we are doing 2 on the East and the West Coast. So as I was bragging on Denver, I love that chapter because, like I said, they just stayed so closely knit, and they support and show up for each other in so many ways outside of just like the business related things. And so yeah, we talked about doing a summit in 2020 before the world shut down. And then we kind of pushed pause for about 2 years. And so this year we just decided we're going to do it. So we're hosting a summit in Denver on September 29th. So it's coming up fast. Yeah. And we have got actually a great topic because we're talking entrepreneurship. There is a group of women talking about, yes, we can, female entrepreneurs, just really talking about the ins and the outs of what it looks like. So many women are looking to move in this direction, and the number of female-owned businesses is climbing significantly every year. Trying to remember my stats. I pulled some stats actually for a member newsletter earlier this week. I think it's like over 5 or 4% a year. And then it's like 42% of small businesses are owned by women. And that number just keeps climbing by a percent of, 5 or so percent every year. And the pandemic has definitely forced that too.
That's my personal theory is
Yeah.
I think we're going to see, I just read an article the other day that was like, maybe we shouldn't call it the great resignation, but rather the great value alignment.
Yes. 100%.
And I was like, ooh, I'm into that because I feel
Yeah.
like that's what's happening. And that's my personal theory is we've seen a lot of people sick of working for quote unquote the man.
Yep.
And they're like, I want to be my own boss. And now I think over the last couple of years, it's been like the tipping point where a lot of them were like, screw this.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure this out. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And
COVID
I'm all
was
for
a
it.
big old kick in the pants for a lot of us. And I think it's as devastating and as difficult as it has been, and the collective trauma, I would never want to ignore any of that.
No.
I would say that it has absolutely spurred a movement of women reevaluating where they are, what they're doing, and looking to make those changes. I can't tell you, there isn't a week that doesn't go by that I don't talk about that topic with podcast guests, potential speakers, members, et cetera. So yes, it is an absolute trend. But we're talking entrepreneurship, and we're also talking heart and data. My background is digital marketing and advertising, but I'm also creative. So I love, love, love that tension. I was always really close with my strategist. I always wanted to understand the data and the analytics of how things were, actually going out into the world and doing things. I love TV, but it's like, Nielsen, I could see how many people watch this. But I started doing direct mail first, and I loved that because coupon redemption told me how effective my mailer was. And it's like, if I wanted to just make art for art, I would maybe just try to be an artist, but I want to make things that are creative that make people change their minds and do something about it.
Yep.
So yeah, advertising was definitely, and still it very much is my jam, but we're talking heart and data, talking about how those two kind of work in tandem. Data can help tell stories, but then how gut, intuition, human insight, there's just still so much value in that. And then keynote, we're still looking for a keynote. I have been struggling to find a keynote. So if you know
challenge accepted, okay,
send her my way. It could be anybody that kind of speaks to our type of audience or that bridges those two. I have a few calls this week, so we might get somebody here soon, but it's definitely, we had somebody lined up and she had to back out. So I was like, I'm like not even like a month. I'm not even, it's like a little bit more than a month out. And I'm like trying not to freak out, but it's going to be a phenomenal day. It's at the Commons in Denver. I can't wait to be out there and just see my Denver ladies in person. And then fast forward 2 weeks, and October 11th, if you're in the Midwest and you're interested, we're doing another summit at the Transept in Cincinnati. And similar day, it's a half day. I don't want to bring people in and exhaust them. I don't want to make them come in at 8:00 in the morning and act like they want to people. They get to show up, have some snacks, do some networking. We will do Keynote, which is the head of digital from Fifth Third, literally built that entire department from the ground up over the last 15 years, has created an amazing culture, is the only female in the C-suite at Fifth Third.
Not cool.
So I'm excited to have her there with us. And then we're talking about social activism and brand, kind of just everything that happened with COVID, Black Lives Matter, all these different things at George Floyd, how brands did or didn't respond was closely speculated, and really understanding how, when, and where brands can and impact change within human rights. Something worth, I think, discussing, because some brands have the power and the ability to help make social change, and they should.
And it's a complicated space. Like you have to be really careful of how you craft your message and make sure that you're being mindful of things that you didn't even realize you needed to keep in mind. That's a challenge, but that's awesome. That's a really important conversation to have.
It is. I mean, even as a small business, I had so much. I made so many missteps and mistakes, and luckily, again, digital trust and data security was just the fact with like the security breaches and people's personal information being taken. It's like people are less prone to share that personal information, yet brands rely upon it for good interactive experiences because we're all impatient and we don't want to log in and we want you to remember what we bought last time. Yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
So we'll be talking about that. And data security, cybersecurity is another growing space. Like I said, our women are also in tech, and it's a very lucrative space. If any of you are looking for a new career path that does pay well, starting salaries are like in six figures to begin with. And they're finding that women are really attuned to and really good at doing this kind of work. And so, cybersecurity, that could be somebody's next move. But so it's going to be, both are great events, both half day events. We're doing headshots, happy hour. We're going to have locally owned and operated businesses that are geared towards women, owned by women, that are going to have booths there as well. And then we're going to do our very famed Ask and Give exchange, which, from the very beginning of the day, we hand the microphone over to our audience and ask them to stand up and ask for what they need. And we go through this whole process of helping discern truly what it is that they're asking and truly what it is that they need, so that we can make sure whatever advice, tips, tricks, or resources that we're giving them, or connections, are the right ones.
Yeah.
And so it's a really cool and effective way to just break down some barriers, and let our members and our attendees feel seen and heard right out of the gate. So yeah, not asking you to come and sit in uncomfortable clothes all day and take notes. You're not going to be talked at all day. You're going to feel engaged. You're going to get your own peer group when you go and sign up for the event. So you kind of have your own ready-made networking circle that you can kind of meet and greet with, which, if you're an ambivert or an introvert, it's also very key, because it's like walking into a room of 150 people and they're all strangers. Barf.
Barf.
After Barf. 2 years, no.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of like over stimuli.
Yes.
Yeah, there's 100%. Just like a lot going on. Amy, as we wrap up here, anyone who's thinking about running a membership-based organization, what are the top 3 things you want them to take away from this conversation?
Mm-hmm. I would say, again, if you decide to do this, understand it's not for the faint of heart. Not everybody is as fortunate as I was to kind of inherit this amazing community and keep it growing. Starting from zero takes a lot of time, energy, and money, honestly. That you really have to believe in your mission and your values. That's number 2, and hold to them, because that's what's going to keep your overall membership experience top notch, and what people came for. Because you can't say the message and then have them come in and have a totally different experience, because it's their time and it's their money that they're investing in you and your mission and your community. And so you have to protect that. And number 3, I would just say, make sure that you are taking care of yourself. I mean, I think it gets said to us too often as women, but we just don't take the advice. I have in the past been equally as guilty. But you're going to have to show up for a lot of different things as a business owner, especially when you're dealing with a membership organization where things are a little more squiffy and not always so direct, which is, again, why values are important in understanding and communicating. But really protecting your personal space, your peace, and your time, just as fiercely as you would for one of your community members. You need to do that.
Love it. One more question here on this topic. If you could go back in time and do one thing differently, what would it be?
Yeah, I like this question a lot. It kind of reminds me of that. Tell us what's one of your weak points, or what's you're not your strength or something. I think in business ownership, it's not that you don't live with regrets. It's just that you cannot carry regrets with you. The business and I would not be where we are right now if I'd done anything different. So not to script the question and say that I wouldn't do anything different. There's probably little things here and there that I might have done differently, but I don't know if I could have, because entrepreneurship is an absolute journey that is learning. It's constantly learning in the throes of risk. It's finding joy and finding yourself in the throes of risk every day, because you're not just getting, that steady paycheck and that insurance coverage that you were before. You are self-dependent and self-reliant. And every risk I've taken, every wrong turn that I have taken has taught me something that I didn't know about myself before. So I tried to think, I'm sure that there's things like here and there, but honestly, I don't think any of them are worth mentioning, because all of them have gotten me to where I am right now as a leader, as an entrepreneur, and Together Digital as a community.
Love it. Okay. Last question. We'll let you get out of here. What is your greatest insight or discovery about life and entrepreneurship?
Is that if you ever want to learn as much as you possibly can about yourself, try being an entrepreneur.
Yup. Like a master class in self-discovery.
It really is. It really is, because, I think I think the one thing that I teetered on about, and I even backtracked on it too, about the previous question, was that I maybe would have tried to believe in myself, or would have believed in myself a little bit sooner. But I needed that stumbling time. I needed that uncertainty. I needed those falters for me to be able to see those weak points and rise above them. And because I am so fiercely loyal to whatever it is that I'm working towards, and I was this way when I worked for other people as well. I would say, just be ready to learn about a lot about yourself. Being self-aware as an entrepreneur is the best thing you can do. And it's the healthiest thing you can do for your business, because personalities can tank companies. It happens all the time.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
Egos can bring down the biggest mountains of any kind of organization. And, when you're working towards a mission, that's the last thing I want.
Yep. 100%. I love that. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for imparting your wisdom on us. For anyone listening who wants to learn more about you or Together Digital, where can they find you?
Yeah, visit us at www.togetherindigital.com is our website. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Amy Vaughan, Vaughan. And connect, reach out, DM me. I'm happy to chat and help however I can.
All right. We'll make sure that gets in the show notes. For anyone listening, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please go ahead and leave us a review wherever you are listening. And Amy, thank you again so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Same here.
To continue learning how to better build your business and make your vision a reality, subscribe to the Welcome to Eloma email list at welcometoeloma.com.